Welcome to the Soul Archaeology podcast, a space for connection, resonance, witnessing, and learning. Together we'll harvest medicine from the spiral of life, sharing conversations with other embodied humans who have navigated their own initiations and found alignment with their true soul essence. With weekly astrology, energy updates, embodied conversation, and channeled teachings, this is a space for you to land and find resonance with the spiral of your own soul. Hello, welcome back to Soul Archaeology. How was that full moon in Scorpio for everyone? I feel like it's been such a dynamic week with Uranus shifting into Gemini, the full moon in Scorpio, just so much change, recalibration, speeding up, slowing down, externalization, internalization. It's so funny because I just paused the recording and it was 444. And I know in the last episode, I paused at 333. So I just wanted to send out a little message and sign to anyone whose numbers are fours, or 444 in particular, which is a beautiful angel number. And that was such an interesting full moon in Scorpio. It was so dynamic and obviously deep and penetrating, as they always are. But this one, with the absence of Uranus and Taurus, felt maybe not subtle necessarily, but just felt a little less tumultuous. There's maybe more stabilization available, which has been the lesson of Uranus and Taurus, is that we access stability through adaptability. We access security and safety through wide branches, deep roots that enable us to move with the wind, move with the storms, move with change. And that is the real medicine of Taurus and Uranus and Taurus, which was so uncomfortable, especially if you have significant Taurus placements, if you have Scorpio placements, if you really have any placements in the fixed signs, Aquarius and Leo. Uranus has been doing work in your chart. And I'm not going to go into, too much detail about the transit of Uranus and Taurus because I talked about it 2 episodes ago, which I do recommend going back to that episode because it really lays out all of the details, what the Uranus and Taurus transit was about, the Uranus and Gemini transit. I also actually wrote a pretty in-depth Substack on this as well and kind of laid out some of my, not predictions, but just what I'm sensing and feeling into for the Uranus and Gemini timeline and this new era that we're stepping into. But the last 8 years of new moons, full moons in Scorpio, Taurus, have been highly, highly impacted by Uranus. And so Uranus is obviously the planet of change, abrupt change, upheaval, innovation. It likes to move things around when they're not working, when they're stagnant. When you mix that with a lunar event, it means the internal landscape is getting reworked in a big way, and it can feel quite destabilizing. So if you've been feeling that as well, I've talked to a few people that said that this full moon felt different for them. If you have a moon in Scorpio in your natal chart, if you have a moon in Taurus, this moon might have felt different for you. You might have, over the last 8 years, developed a deeper root, a deeper sense of emotional stability, emotional anchoring, which of course comes through intimacy with self. It comes through the shadow work. It comes through the internal work, the subconscious work. We can only create stability through witnessing, through going in and deeper. Dissociation and avoidance does not create stability. It just creates more fragility, actually. And we might be able to grow, but we're not growing from a stable foundation. We're growing from a shaky foundation, one that's not built in resourcing, but built on maybe desire or wounding. So I think a lot of the value of this Uranus and Taurus transit was stripping away what is inauthentic, what is actually fake or hollow, where we place our faith, our trust, our safety, security externally in systems that are just not reliable, that are not permanent, and how we can shift that into a deeper root that is anchored into something that's real, that's true, that's tangible. So that work over the last 8 years, even if you weren't fully conscious of it, I think we were in many ways forced into it. We, of course, had the global pandemic, which uprooted a lot of our old anchors, what we believed in, what we thought was true, what was real, our financial systems, the things that we really depended on and relied on. The wiring was exposed. And it's simply exposing it so that we can pull out from maybe not totally, fully, completely utilizing it or using it, but placing our faith and our trust in it in a way that creates dependence. And so it's just presented a lot of opportunities over the last 8 years to create new systems, internal subconscious systems, but also external systems. I think Uranus and Gemini is going to bring us into more community building, and specifically local community building. I think it's going to be an era of really advocating for local community. We're seeing it even here in LA, so much focus on the mayor election and realizing there's just so much happening on a global scale, geopolitically, even at the higher levels of government within this country that really is just totally out of our control. Voting, things like that, which it can be incredibly frustrating and incredibly activating to feel like so much is unfolding that affects you that you have no control over. And that's where we get to place our energy into our local communities, the things that we can actually touch and feel and impact to build systems that really work for the greater good. And when I say the greater good, we're thinking about Gemini, it's local. So your community, the people around you, the people in your town, the people you connect with in your neighborhood. I think these more grassroots, building from the ground up, building through networking locally can be so incredibly impactful. And I feel like that's a lot of what we're going to see accelerate over the next 8 years, hopefully, as technology accelerates at an unprecedented pace, which I know might be hard to believe, but with Uranus and Gemini, it will. We're going to see another side of that this desire and this craving to slow down, to go local, to, really focus on the farmers markets and the local community and the systems that we can build here to support people in need. That is exactly what is being called forward. And I think many of us, I've talked to so many people, so many people in my work over the last, especially 6 years, who are waiting for their mission, where they're headed, where they're going, where they're meant to live, where they're meant to move. So many people are sort of in this liminal space, not quite sure where that landing place is, where they can deepen their roots. And I think that hopefully this Uranus and Gemini transit will provide more clarity for people, what their mission is, where they are. But Uranus and Taurus was really, really helpful. And I hope that maybe some of that was revealed to you with this full moon in Scorpio. The moon in its fullest light, fully illuminated, the full moon, the peak of the lunar cycle, it is very revealing. So whatever was revealed to you over the last 5 days is really important data and information. And I think it's how we interact with it is really everything. And so if you felt that it was incredibly destabilizing or incredibly activating, or maybe you felt that it wasn't actually as activating or destabilizing as it would have been before, this is where the work gets revealed. We get to see how much we've done, how much we've moved through, how much we've quote unquote healed when we experience things on the physical plane. That's why we experience challenge and conflict, is to put our work into action, to really get to understand and see this is how much I've changed. This is how much I've evolved. And that's really beautiful. I've had a lot of people going through those scenarios lately, just being given an opportunity to witness how much has changed for them, how much they've evolved. It's not comfortable necessarily. These haven't been comfortable situations, but they get to see, wow, I'm interacting with this experience differently than I would have before. And that's a gift. So I think this full moon in Scorpio literally starting the month of May, opening the month of May, we have another full moon in Sagittarius on May 31st, which closes the month of May. So May has 2 blue moons, 2 full moons within it. But it brought us into an internal reflection, right? Scorpio is so internal. It's the underworld. It's our subconscious. It's where we get to see and witness our depths, our basement, what's held in the unseen realms. And I think a lot of what this full moon did, even if we weren't conscious of it, is cleared a lot of space, cleared out old material, old content, old weight and density that we're carrying that can no longer be brought forward. And that's helpful. So we had this sort of contraction at the beginning of May, but May in general brings some stabilization. This is also the last few days of this stretch of time where all planets have been direct. That paired with an unprecedented Aries season, which has been just incredibly unhinged and fast and unpredictable, and also probably really supportive in so many ways, we bring in some stabilization. Pluto stations retrograde this week. Pluto is very involved in that full moon in Scorpio, so perhaps we get to start integrating a little bit. We get to start feeling, wow, a lot has shifted. A lot has been moving, even things that we maybe aren't aware of, a lot underneath the surface or in the subterranean realms. And let's just pause with it for a minute. Granted, from now until August, we're in an accelerated quantum leap. So things really start to pick up end of May, June, when Jupiter shifts into Leo. It's going to activate this incredible configuration in the sky, which activates all the outer planets. And perhaps May is a little bit of a gentle, very subtle slowdown, but a chance to catch our breath a little bit, to sort of recalibrate, to reground, restabilize in ways we need to be prepared for what's to come this summer. So this week we have, on May 3rd, Mercury entering Taurus, which is a stabilization. It's going to be helpful to kind of root and ground some of our thoughts, some of our actions, some of what's been swirling around in that Aries field for a while now. On May 4th, Mars in Aries squares Jupiter in Cancer. On May 5th, Mercury in Taurus squares Pluto in Aquarius. And then on May 6th, Pluto stations retrograde in Aquarius. So we have this squaring between Mercury and Taurus, newly entered Taurus, and Pluto and Aquarius right before Pluto stations retrograde. We've had the Sun in Taurus, obviously. Now Mercury enters, so there is a little bit of slowing down. The mind slows down a little bit. Practicality is brought in, stabilization, maybe even hesitation, more consideration. Taurus loves to know what's going on. It loves to have security. It loves to plan things out. It doesn't like to be so reactive and impulsive like Aries can be. This week is still filled with a lot of depth, but with Mercury in Taurus, it's going to stabilize some of the energy. It might not feel as intense or as overwhelming. It might relieve some of the pressure we've been feeling to make everything happen all at once, to push forward, to initiate, to relieve the pressure valve a little bit. Mars is still in Aries, and it is squaring Jupiter this week, but it's separating from Neptune, it's separating from Saturn, so it has some more space. Hopefully, this Mercury in Taurus energy can help it stabilize and ground and think things over a little bit. With Mercury in Taurus, the mind moves into the body. It moves out of the fire of Aries, the pressure of Aries, and into fixed earth. Cardinal fire, Aries, is focused more on action. It's focused more on change, immediacy, reactivity, impulsivity. Mercury in Taurus considers the end game. It considers what feels real, what feels tangible, sustainable, what actually holds value. And that's important because we've had Saturn in Aries, which is helping us with that a little bit, but we really need this stabilization. We need this slowing down, this gentle pause to really consider what is sustainable long term, not what's desirable right now or what we want to do and sort of the ways we might want to respond or react, but what is appropriate long term? What is the best choice moving forward? There's embodiment here, which is so helpful. Listening to the body more, slowing things down within the body, not necessarily overthinking, not rushing, but really sensing, letting understanding come through the body, the nervous system, presence. That's the highest expression of Taurus. Now, Mercury in Taurus can also be very stubborn, very fixed. It might bring forward areas, belief systems where we are immovable, where we refuse to consider change or expansion or different potentials and possibilities. You might feel particularly rooted in what you believe, especially because we're going to have this squaring to Pluto in Aquarius, and Aquarius is fixed air, so it's fixed beliefs. So this week might bring forward some dynamics, some relationships where you disagree, where there's sort of differing belief systems that just feel like deal breakers. It might bring forward stubbornness and maybe where we are immovable, where we're fixed, where we refuse to let go of maybe something we've said or something we believe. And that's tricky terrain because right now we have to be very, very open to change. We have to be adaptable, right? So we have to go back to the medicine of Uranus and Taurus. And what have we learned about being fixed? It's not helpful. Doesn't mean we have to always be changing, but we have to be open to change. We have to be able to adapt and move and flow with the current, with what's happening, with very deep roots. Now, that is a root in a belief that is beyond the constructs of society, maybe belief in God, belief in a higher source, belief in the earth, whatever it is, but an anchored sense of self in your belief that is going to help us move through these times. And then, like I said, we still have Mars in Aries, and it's squaring Jupiter in Cancer this week. So Jupiter is kind of at its last journey through Cancer. It's getting ready to shift into Leo this summer. Mars wants to move, especially in Aries. It is very impulsive here. It has free reign to act and move and respond in the ways it sees fit in the moment. And that is not always what's in our highest alignment. Jupiter in Cancer is expanding our emotional landscape. So we get, with these two squaring off, a surge of energy, a desire to react, emotions driving our actions. This might also feel like a push to finally move forward, or a willingness to take up space, to claim your emotional space, your emotional experiences. But it can also look like overextension, overfunctioning. Jupiter amplifies, Mars acts. So without proper awareness, this can feel like burnout, overfunctioning, impulsivity, acting before really grounding and sorting through and feeling your emotions. There's something wanting to push up to the surface. There's something that wants to be witnessed, specifically related to Jupiter, related to our emotional landscape, belonging, safety, security, mothering, caretaking, home. This is going to feel like excess energy in the body. It's important. Like I said, last episode, the weekend, or the episode before that, move your body, move with the emotion. Do not respond or react from the emotion, but move with it. We don't want to suppress it. It's worthy of being there. It's worthy of being seen and witnessed. It has a message for you, but move with it rather than react from it. This will make all the difference. There might be grief that comes forward. There might be anger. Mars in Aries brings a lot of anger to the surface. I'm talking to so many people who are feeling angry, and rightfully so. Of course, there's righteous anger in the field. And there's old, unprocessed anger that also needs witnessing. It just needs to be met and moved with, especially because right after this, we have Mercury newly entering Taurus, squaring off with Pluto in Aquarius. And so this is going to bring old material to the surface. Pluto brings truth and intensity. It shows what's hidden. It reveals our deeper layers, what we can't necessarily see, but what is needed to be witnessed for our evolution. This can look like heavy conversations. It can look like old material coming to the surface. It can even feel almost like a Mercury retrograde, where old things, old people, old relationships, old stories come back around to be witnessed and integrated in a deeper way. This, paired with the squaring between Mars and Jupiter, it can create a climate for a lot of material to come up. So we have to remember, return back to the medicine of Taurus. We have a body, and that body is a conduit for energy. And if we can just move with it and then let it express in the way it wants to, we don't have to make stories and narratives out of that energy. And when I say energy, I mean emotion, I mean charge, I mean anger, grief, fear. Yes, of course, there are older stories that are attached to those emotions, but it doesn't always need to be met. We don't always have to go into it. And hopefully, the help with Mercury stabilized in Taurus, we can recognize that. I think it's important right now to just move your body, period. Now that is riding your bike, going for a walk, hiking, walking on a walking pad, dancing, intuitive movement when you first get up, things like that. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to look like everyone else. It could be a workout class. It could be yoga. But some sort of movement proactively can help to stabilize some of what can come forward this week, especially because Pluto is getting ready to station retrograde on the 6th. So Pluto retrogrades are long. They're about 6 months. This is going to last through the summer. It's not unusual. It's not unique necessarily, but it is an inward movement. And it does slow the energy down a little bit. Maybe it slows down some of the pace of our evolution. I will say the last few months have been incredibly rapid and fast. And we knew that, right? Talked about it in the 2026 forecast workshop, but we can't really move at that pace forever. We need these healthy contractions like retrogrades and Pluto activations because they bring us inward, right? We need a contraction so we can expand. And that is the natural process and dance of life on this planet. Like a caterpillar, it contracts to expand. So as it moves forward, it's contracting all the time to provide that life force to move and propel itself forward. And we're the same. We need those contractions to sort of recharge, recalibrate, turn inward, process so that we have the energy and the clarity and the will, quite frankly, to move forward in the ways we really need to. So we've seen a lot of external transformation, of course, within systems, identity within groups, belonging. This is bringing us into an internal transformation. When a planet is retrograde, it internalizes, it goes inward, it goes into the underworld. So we get to meet the places within us and how we're reacting and responding to the shifts and changes externally. And what we truly want, how we want to move forward, how we want to participate in this great change, this evolutionary portal that we're in. And this can bring forward themes around belonging, identity, belief systems. Retrogrades are always so helpful, even if they feel a little sticky. We need them. They're really, really supportive because they bring us into our internal relationship with what's happening externally. So we get to recalibrate. That's how change occurs. Of course, it's an internal shift and an internal process that then ripples out to change the external. So it feels like we're kind of back to step by step, focusing on the present moment, focusing on your body, returning to what's real and true for you right now, not reacting or responding from emotion or wounding, but just really slowing things down, returning to simplicity. I'm glad we get to walk this path together. This summer is going to be electric and fast, so let's just enjoy this gentle, subtle, and short period of slowing down. I appreciate each and every one of you. I did want to mention that my favorite red light box called the Loom Box is on sale. By the time you listen to this, it will just be on sale for Monday. So it's on sale over the weekend, but on Monday is the last day for the sale and it's 50% off. And they only do this sale 2 times per year now and then in over the holidays for a week. So this is a perfect time to snag this box if you've been looking for red light therapy, if you've been wanting to drop into that healing zone. It's really powerful. And I've noticed so much as far as my inflammation, my skin tone and texture. I also love it because it's really portable. And when I travel, I can take it with me. It's not bulky. And also it just doesn't take up a bunch of space in the house. So it covers a lot of ground, but it's also portable and easy to use. So I love it. I will link it in the show notes. I also wanted to share that my friends at Pound Jewelry have released a new collection called Mother in time for Mother's Day, which is so amazing. And my friends at Pound are incredible. I've known them for many years. It's a mother-daughter team. They make the most incredible pieces made with gemstones, pearls, sacred minerals, the things that are of the earth, and into these incredible, beautiful talismans and adornment pieces that can either be used or just are beautiful. So I love them so much. This collection is incredible. It really honors the profound nature of mothering, not necessarily even just in the traditional way, but more about honoring the way we each mother, the ways we tend, create, hold, sustain life in our relationships, our work, our bodies, our communities. And it also pulls on the depth of that Scorpio full moon, May 1, the Beltane portal that we had. And there are many pearls in this collection, which I absolutely love. I'm so drawn to pearls, and part of it is that they go through so much conflict and grit in order to make the beautiful luminosity that they hold and carry. Pearls are really symbolic for me. And so I love this collection so much. You can use the code ALLY20 to get 10% off. And yeah, I talk about them a lot on this podcast. I adore them. I adore small makers. We have to support them in these times. So I will link that in the show notes. And the card I pulled for this week for the Soul Archaeology community from the Untamed Elemental deck is the Ray of Light card, and it's all about focus. It says, Ray of Light offers speedy luminosity. His bright spectrum beams wide, a fundamental constant of nature that allows us to see and understand our world. His reasoning polarizes everything in his path, intensifying exactness and focusing on the impalpable. Out of him, we create realities. In his brightness, all inhibitions subside, all uncertainties fall away. What was once blurred focuses with sharp clarity, aligning your perspectives with omniscience. Ray of Light reminds you that where your attention goes, energy flows. Your consciousness is a light ray, imbuing life, giving nourishment to everything it highlights. What you emphasize with your awareness can either enhance or deplete your quality of life. Ask Ray of Light to help you focus on your vision for the future rather than your fears. See your dreams coming into form. Imagine the tastes, smells, and colors coalescing into a world where you want to live. Ray of Light loves to amplify convictions of beauty. When it's balanced, you're able to visualize positive outcomes and bring them into form. When it's imbalanced, you become fixated upon what you don't want. To bring into balance, fiercely redirect your attention. I love this card. And if you have any questions, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing this episode. If you love Soul Archaeology, I recommend joining my Substack. You can subscribe for free. You can also pay $8 a month and get deeper dives, more personal notes, more frequent articles. And this is also a great way to support the production of this podcast because I don't have any sponsors and I just do it on my own. So thank you for being here. Have a beautiful week, and I'll see you soon.